Welcome to another live stream, my friends. Bitcoin seeing some selling pressure once again. Is this a healthy correction, or is this the start of the continuation of a much larger downtrend? You guys who have been following along on these daily live streams, and especially those of you in my private Telegram, should not be all too shocked by this, as I've been not only very vocal about the fact that the downtrend still hasn't been broken, but also shared exactly how I was planning to play this. And so far, that short swing setup is playing out beautifully. Currently, my average entry here is at this blue line here, sitting at 92,358 US dollars. I even said in my last stream, you guys, that I actually had a gut feeling we would break resistance this time, but I was shorting resistance anyways because I trade the charts over emotions, which once again, the correct decision with another beautiful short playing out. Backtested chart setups over human emotions every single time. It quite literally pays to have systematic discipline in the game of trading, you guys. And that's exactly why I ended up shorting this setup here, because basically I was mentioning, guys, that it's very possible we get some sort of a swing fail on the 4-hour here. I actually had one more entry up at 94,777 US dollars, which never ended up triggering, but I hit the rest of my entries. So my average entry is currently sitting right here. So that trade is still playing out. I also have a scalp. Actually, funny story, my scalp is actually a better entry than that. My scalp entry is a little bit higher at 92,622 US dollars. And it just so happened to turn into a runner. But as far as the swing position goes, I mean, you guys know I've been talking about this resistance for 2 weeks now. Basically, ever since we started getting a bit of a climb, I said, yeah, you know, if we end up getting a good bounce, I would be looking at shorting these two pockets because we have a downtrend, and a downtrend that has been going for about 7 weeks, actually going on about 8 weeks now. But just from the basic market structure, and I know I go over this every stream, but we had our lower low, and that confirmed the highest point between the two. That's our confirmed lower high on the trend for the 4-hour there. So although we did technically break above it, I was mentioning that it's very possible it's just a swing fail because we never actually broke above my invalidation, being my 115. I have been saying for the last several streams that basically my invalidation is above 95.2 thousand US dollars, just leaving a little bit of wiggle room above my 115 basically. But yeah, we obviously never invalidated that. So it is what it is. And this trade is playing out beautifully. I don't know for sure if we are going to end up hitting my targets. Actually, just before starting the stream, I was really considering taking some profits off this position, and I still might right away. Those of you in the Telegram, I'll obviously keep you up to date if I do that. I might even do it during this stream, honestly. But yeah, basically just playing the 4-hour for what it is. And I even mentioned it, you guys, in, let me actually just bring this up here. I actually mentioned it in my Telegram channel, much the same thing, right? Basically, yeah, I think that we will break out, but I trade the charts, not my emotions. And yeah, basically, and I was saying that basically right up at our resistance, talking about why I was short in this level and so on. So of course, those of you who are interested in seeing way more examples of how I'm looking at market structure, how I'm pulling fibs, some of my trade setups, favorite trade strategies, and so on, my partners at BloFin are currently giving my followers this special promo. And yeah, basically it lasts for a couple more days yet. It lasts until December 7th here, so you got a couple more days. But yeah, basically, if you sign up with my QR code, which either the one on here or this one that I will pull up for you, that will basically get you access to that promotion, as well as access to my private Telegram channel. So do yourselves a favor and scan the QR code on the screen and get in there if you want to trade the charts for what they are, rather than listening to the same emotional predictions day in and day out with nothing backing them up other than a warm cup of hopium. Because I just like to look at the charts for what they are. You guys know that I'm not big on fundamentals. I'm not big on trading announcements. I just look at charts at very, very basic market structure. I think that keeping it simple goes a long way. And hopefully those of you who have been tuning into my live streams daily, I mean, You guys should see this more clear than anybody at this point, how accurate I have been on this downtrend, when every time we get a nice little bounce, everybody on social media starts screaming that the bottom is in, and then we just carry on the downtrend later in the week. I've been very accurate on this entire downtrend, right from when I mentioned live on stream at about 125.2 thousand that I was shorting. For the exact reason, like I was just talking about on the 4-hour. Same thing, right? We have a swing fail. We got up into my 115 fib pocket, my red box. And although I felt bullish at the time, we were breaking out of all-time highs. I felt bullish, but the chart structure was the same, just like it was back here. Another swing fail. We see these all the time, you guys, and people love FOMOing into breakouts. That doesn't just go for the upside. It also goes for the downside. People love shorting once we lose support rather than waiting for that retest. And yeah, so just basically, you guys, just keeping it very simple, looking for those structure breaks and those pullbacks. And Fibonacci's are so nice for keeping everything systematic. And it's why I love trading them, because it's so systematic. It's so structured. On this fib pull, I have my entries, my take profits, my invalidation, right? I have my entries in my purple and red boxes. I have my targets at my green fibs, even this one if you want a third one there, and invalidation above my red box, basically. So everything is laid out. When I pull a fib, that is the range that I'm looking at playing, and obviously playing the range first and hoping for a breakout second. So obviously my first target is down at my 0.5 fib right now. Second target's the 214 fib. And from there, I would hope to have half my position just basically nuke to the downside and continue and just catch a home run that way. But playing the range first, and if this is the fib that I have pulled, these are my targets. There's just no way for me to argue that. That's what my range targets are. So that's why, again, I just love trading fibs for that reason, just keeping it simple and keeping it very unemotional, basically. Looking at the shorter time frames, you guys, in my last stream, I actually had mentioned that we might be seeing a perfect top right up here, because again, we had a 5-minute swing fail pocket, this red pocket up here between my 1 and my 115. We had a 5-minute swing fail inside the 4-hour swing fail range. So we had them kind of overlapping there. And although I didn't know for sure if that was going to play out, so far it's been an absolutely perfect top. And we have been trading down since then, right? We ended up dropping out, basically confirming this as a swing fail on the 4-hour, and we've been trending to the downside ever since. Another thing that I had mentioned actually last night, you guys, was with the MDX Trendmaster indicator on the 5-minute. I mentioned this in the Telegram, that we had printed, basically we started printing lower sell signals. That's a big warning for me with this indicator, and why it's still one of my favorite indicators. Not so much taking each one of these signals with all too much weight on their own, but really focusing on which way they're trending. So when we got a lower trending sell signal here, that was a big warning that there's some weakness there and that the bears are stepping in, and that's right at an important resistance level. But last night I mentioned it when we got this lower sell signal here. And yeah, basically we ended up getting another one since that. And we are just setting lower buy signals. So even when we get a buy signal here, it's not necessarily that, the bulls are back, because it's a significantly lower buy, where we still have lower trending buy signals, lower trending sell signals. So I know a lot of people use indicators specifically to think that, hey, I can take way more entries. I'm going to use this indicator to get into way more trade setups, and that's going to make me a bunch more money. That's not necessarily how I use them. I also use indicators for risk management, when to avoid trades, and more so looking at them for confluence to market structure I already am looking at. Right. So in a case like this, there was plenty of times where I thought, hey, there might be a little double bottom. I think I had actually mentioned, I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure I mentioned even this STUBER fib setup. And I had mentioned that this might have been in a private stream. But either way, I had mentioned this basically STUBER fib here. But I also said that I wasn't really interested in taking it, just because, for one, we're at that 4-hour resistance, and also it would be fighting the trend of this indicator. So the fact that we have lower trending sells, lower trending buys, even if you don't want to play things to the short side, if you're scared to play the bearish side, I mean, whatever, everyone has their own trading styles, right? But at least using this indicator like this, it was a warning to me to not be desperately FOMOing into long positions, because there was nothing suggesting that the trend is going to the upside anymore. So at this point, still just playing the trend to the downside here. Notice another thing, I always talk about this, you guys, with the MDX retail long short ratio indicator, and how we often see retail start building longs at resistance. Now, guys, this is on the daily chart here, but look at this structure. It's basically the same as the 4 hour, except it's actually a little bit higher. However, it's the same idea, right? The fact that we had a low here because we got our little bounce, but we set a lower low here. Highest point between the two is right here. So this yellow line is my confirmed lower high on the daily trend here. And notice what we got here. We got our little swing fail there. And as soon as we got our confirmation of the swing fail with our red candle close there, notice that that's where retail started longing right into resistance. Just like I talk about every single stream, you guys, they backed off on the shorts and started FOMOing long into resistance. You see this time in, time out. You see it all the time, you guys. I do want to hop over to the hourly because I haven't actually checked the hourly on this guy yet today. But yeah, you can obviously see the same thing, basically, that we were trading at resistance, that same resistance level. And then we can see here that the longs just started aggressively building to the upside. It did take a while. It was more so here as we started to dump. You can see that retail was trying to long the dip, basically. So this indicator is really neat to use just because it's more fun than anything, just kind of watching the psychology of retail traders and watching how they FOMO into all the wrong positions at the exact wrong times. So this is exactly what I've been talking about recently, you guys, especially on the daily. It's just so clear that when we hit that daily lower high resistance, that's exactly when retail started building their longs. You just see it time and time again. Ethereum, you guys. Ethereum, I have mixed feelings about, because we did actually end up breaking our lower high on the trend on the 4 hour and continued trending up to the upside here. So Ethereum actually has slightly different structure than Bitcoin right now. Even right now, it's at a, well, we'll have to see if this support level holds. As far as the immediate trend goes, I mean, this would have been our last pause here, and that would be our next higher high, basically. So this would be basically the order block, the higher low, whatever you want to call it, on just this immediate trend, just starting from where we pivoted here. And so that basically, that level right now is where we have tested to absolutely perfectly so far. So far we do have that support holding. I am not overly interested in long positions right now, especially knowing, guys, that tomorrow I'm really expecting the market to basically trade sideways. The last month or two, basically Saturdays have pretty much flatlined. Volatility shuts right off. And then as we get it kind of a few hours away from the weekly candle close on Sundays, that's where we start to see volatility pick up again. So we'll have to see what happens, but I'm not overly interested in looking for long positions right now on something like that. But yeah, Ethereum, to me, it does look slightly better than Bitcoin, at least just how the structure is formed. Let's go back here. Yeah, basically, you guys, you know what I'm going to do here, actually. If Bitcoin ends up getting above 90,000 US dollars, I am going to start taking some profits off of my swing position, just because we are getting, we got so close to my 0.5 fib target. And sometimes, those are basically my targets with typical STUBER fib setup. But since we did get this swing fail, even though I'm still looking at that as a bearish situation, since it went higher, that means we might not dip quite as low for our targets. So I just want to make sure I at least lock in some profits on this position. My stop loss is at break even, and I am going to set a trigger order for just above 90K to basically lock in a quarter of my position if it happens, just so I'm guaranteed profits on this position. And guys, those of you who do appreciate my level-headed approach, just trading the charts for what they are, giving you guys insight to some of my favorite trade strategies and how I look at market structure, how I'm pulling fibs, how I'm doing all that, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. But yeah, trying to be the voice of reason in this crazy market and just keep a level head and trade the structure of the charts for what they are, right? So what's another one here? Solana. We'll take a look at Solana. Very similar to Bitcoin, right? It doesn't quite have that same structure as Ethereum, where it ended up going significantly higher. Solana, very much like Bitcoin, except playing out more aggressively, just like it did last time, right? I had mentioned this on a recent stream, basically, that this was the fib that we had pulled. And, well, basically the same as what it is. I guess I can just delete that. But the fact that we did get this set up once, where you would have hit 3 of your entries, and Solana did actually hit the first 2 take profits there, whereas Bitcoin front run the 214 a little bit. So Solana has been basically reacting to those bearish setups a little more aggressively than Bitcoin, although the structure looks very similar. For example, we have already hit the 0.5 fib target with Solana, whereas Bitcoin hasn't, right? So not looking great there. Still have the same swing fail type of setup there. So not great as a whole. Looking at the S&P 500, I know some people like following the stock market and whatnot. And I have been talking about this recently, is that, you know, I have mixed feelings about this one because the S&P has had such an incredibly strong uptrend. It has been significantly stronger than Bitcoin. If I bring up the trend master on the daily chart here, I mean, we've reclaimed, when it prints here, even when we lost this purple support line here, we reclaimed it as support. So far, we're still holding that. It is a strong trend. However, my red line here is a warning shot fired that here was our high, here was our higher high, higher low. We broke that. That's our warning shot. So at that point, even though we reclaimed it quickly, yeah, it's very likely, since we basically close green and reclaim it right away, yeah, that's a green light for a nice, easy bounce trade, right? However, that structure still did break to the downside. So this very well could just be a retest of resistance. So I have mixed feelings about that. Gold is very much the same thing. Well, basically exactly the same thing, just not quite up at the 886 like the S&P is. But basically, same thing. Gold had a very strong uptrend, but we have since lost some of this structure, right? So the fact that we lost a level like that, and we do technically have resistance just above if we do go a little bit higher, but we're already just front running the 786 very slightly. But understand that if we do go higher, that there is still potential resistance there, basically. Let me know in the chat, guys, how you guys are all feeling, how you're doing with these market conditions, all that sort of stuff. I hope you guys are absolutely crushing it. Those of you guys who are in my Telegram and those of you guys who have been in my live streams, like I said, this downtrend, although I understand that when I say this is a very healthy downtrend, that may trigger a lot of people because a lot of people consider it disgusting and not healthy. But just the fact that we continue to, even on a micro level, basically set lower lows, confirming lower highs, the market structure itself, if you're looking at it as a downtrend, has been insanely predictable, insanely tradable, and insanely healthy. I know a lot of people are blaming manipulation and that sort of thing, but if anything, manipulation is making this chart so much easier to trade, you guys. And that's exactly why we trade the charts, and we cancel out all the noise. We don't listen to the hopium and the random stuff on social media and that sort of thing. And, not looking for fundamentals, not looking after getting wrecked from a trade, not looking to point the finger at something and something to blame. The only person that we can blame at the end of the day when we take trades and they go against us, you are the only person that you can blame. And that's what I love about trading, you guys. When trades work out like this, I mean, yeah, it's great to see that, hey, something that I've worked hard to, get my emotions under control and get a disciplined trade strategy and that sort of thing. It's great to see it playing out time and time again. It's fantastic to see that, right? But when it does go against me, then I like that I generally understand what happened. If the probabilities didn't work out in my favor, that's just a part of trading, right? But that's why we back test. And whenever we back test using this replay feature on TradingView, we go back, we find the rules for our trade setup in the charts, and then we find out what our probabilities are for that trade setup playing out. Now, typically speaking, I know myself anyways, when I go and back test 4 years worth of data, for example, of a chart strategy, I don't go and read what the headlines were saying every time that that chart setup was there. I don't go back on social media and see what the sentiment was at those times. None of that. It is 100% based on charts. And that's why I am very good at keeping a level head and trading the charts for what they are. That's the power of backtesting. Backtesting is so important, you guys. You should never be trading without backtesting a chart strategy, basically. But I mean, most traders would gladly rather lose $10,000 than to put 10 hours of homework into backtesting the charts, right? I say this all the time. It may sound a little cliche. It may sound like something that's not very exciting. Good. Trading shouldn't be exciting. You shouldn't get too excited. I mean, obviously we do get excited with gains and we do get disappointed with losses. But if you're truly upset and your emotions are out of control, maybe it's time to do some back testing, figure out your probabilities, trade with smaller amounts until you have a systematic trade strategy working out in your favor and that sort of thing, you guys. Very important. Otherwise, it can lead to such a nasty downward spiral of revenge trading and all that sort of stuff. So once again, guys, if you do appreciate me trying to keep a level head and trade the charts for what they are, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and thumbs up to yourselves as well, right? I see so many of you guys here in every live stream, so many familiar names here that you guys are here every single day. And, that just goes to show that you guys are interested in looking at the charts for what they are and, learning the skill of analysis and trading rather than trying to trade those gut feelings and say, oh, this person tweeted this, therefore I'm entering this position. I only know one person in my life who trades fundamentals well, and he is trading looking at targets years in the future. He is trading a weekly chart, not a 5-minute or a 4-hour or even a daily chart. So it's very different, right? Fundamentals do matter. But trying to trade them is insanely difficult, especially for people who, let's face it, most people trading crypto are degens, myself included. There's no offense there. I would personally rather trade something like the 5-minute, and on the longer time frames for me is more of a 4-hour, right? My 4-hour is my swing trades. My 5 minutes are my scalps. And, that's just the way it is. But trying to trade fundamentals with that would be insanely difficult. Whereas with my trade strategies, I know, okay, I have about a 75% chance that I am going to hit my targets here. Fantastic. I'll take the trade, whether I agree with it or, whether I think it's going to play out. Just like I said here, I thought we were going to break out, but I played the charts for what they are. I like trading swing fails. Thought we were going to break out, but we didn't. Stuck to the short either way, keeping those emotions in line. Just because my Fibonacci pockets, it's all laid out there for me. It's very possible that I could have ended up taking a loss. If I would have hit my last entry, my average entry basically would have been somewhere here, probably in about the bottom third of my red box, basically. And I would have taken a small loss if it got invalidated. That's a part of trading. Trading isn't about winning every single trade setup. Trading is also about controlling those losses and having proper risk management, right? So yeah, eventually, one of these trades eventually is going to work against me on one of these swing positions on the 4-hour. When that happens, so be it. It was a great 8 weeks of trading the downtrend. So if people want to laugh when that loss does happen, just understand that I wasn't catching the knife the whole way down. I was, nailing profits and dollar cost averaging into some spot positions and that sort of thing with it. So I really don't care if it gets invalidated and we move to the upside and go to new all-time highs. I'll be very happy, because I have more holdings in my spot than I did, a month or two ago. So I'm very willing to have that. Just the trend is your friend until the end, and it hasn't changed yet. One other reason why I had mentioned why I think, I'm probably going to end up taking some profits fairly soon. Well, For now, I'm just going to leave it as that triggered order. But another thing leaning towards, or making me lean a little bit bullish at least, is once again the MDX trend master, but this time on the 4-hour chart, is we technically have a slightly higher buy signal here now. So we still haven't triggered a higher sell signal, but we do have a higher buy signal. And again, that is a bit of a warning for me that the trend could be shifting. Now, it looks like these are actually printed basically a double bottom, basically right at the same height, right? However, this one here would have printed at about 91.3K, and this one here would have printed at about 93K. So that is, in fact, a higher buy signal. And so far, we are holding basically the trailing stop loss of this kind of an indicator. Hasn't got a close below it, but we're wicking and testing that level, and so far still holding that. So technically, we may end up holding this indicator as support, which is another reason why I updated my stop loss to break even, and why I set a trigger order to take partial profits, at least in case this trade basically reverses on me, right? DGen captain right here. I love being a DGen. I hope you're all doing fantastic. Yes, Hype also had that beautiful drop. I don't know if you saw that. Your name, just a few letters there, VBTACD. I know that a couple streams ago, you had mentioned in the comments you wanted me to look at Ethereum and Hype, and I did, in fact, do that on my last stream. And those setups that you mentioned were absolutely beautiful. So well done. I don't know if you're actually in my private Telegram or if you're just catching on to my strategy from these streams. Either way, fantastic to see. Honestly, thank you for posting that, just because, yeah, those trade setups that you mentioned had already played out, or have at this point at least already played out. But I love to see that you guys are catching on to that sort of thing. It's like a poker game. The guys with the larger stacks are pushing the smaller stacks around, not manipulation, just playing the game. Yeah, and that's exactly it. Honestly, you guys, it would be people call it manipulation because that makes them feel good about themselves getting wrecked. In reality, it's just market makers. It's market makers setting big sell walls and big buy walls. That's always been a thing. That's not an attack on crypto. That's also in stocks. That's on Forex. That's, that's just on everything. Market makers have always been a thing. Well, at least since most of us have been around, have always been a thing in crypto, right? So market makers are basically what make technical analysis work, if anything. So if that's manipulation, bring it on. It's making trading easier. Gravy train. I'm a total degen, but your basic structure fib start, I'm straightening my act out. And see, that's exactly it, right? It's okay. I consider myself a degen too, but I'm a disciplined one. I have certain strategies that I play. So although, if it's degenerate to play the 5-minute, I don't actually consider it degenerate. I would consider it degenerate for the people who are trading the longer time frames with no reasoning and just saying, well, the global money supply is growing, therefore Bitcoin has to go up, and therefore I'm going to long the shit out of everything. That is degenerate to me. And although I agree that a bigger money supply can influence crypto to the bullish side, it just hasn't yet. So until that market structure starts to form, I would rather be a degen on the 5-minute trading actual market structure and actual charts than to be someone who thinks that they're not degenerate but are behaving like one, right? You're in the Telegram 100%. Nice. Well, I love to see that then. Glad to have you there, and love to see that it's clearly working, right? You're seeing those examples and catching on very well. Today, equity market moving opposite of crypto. Interesting. I haven't really looked at it much. BTC seems to be in a downside channel from the highs in October through now. Yeah, exactly. Just a nasty downtrend. Coining that for the Stu crew. DD, disciplined degen. Yeah, no kidding. Love it. But yeah, Anyways, my friends, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. Just a quick live stream before we go into the weekend hours. Like I said, tomorrow's probably going to flatline. If that's the case, I likely won't end up doing a live stream tomorrow. If something crazy happens, I will likely do one in the afternoon. But Sunday, definitely, as we get, I really like what happened last week. Basically, did a stream a couple hours before the weekly candle closed just to kind of prepare for that volatility. And it absolutely played out perfectly. So I'll probably do something like that again. So definitely stay tuned for Sunday. But like I said, if things get a little more volatile tomorrow, I will also be around tomorrow here. Sorry, just seeing a little bit of spam in the chat. Don't mind the random coin names of being shilled in there. Those are clearly spam bots or whatever. But yeah, guys. Anyways, and just a reminder for those of you who are interested in learning and seeing more examples of some of my favorite trade strategies, how I use Fibonacci's and market structure, some of my trade setup ideas, just more of my overall thoughts on the market. Do yourselves a favor, scan that QR code on the screen. Like I said, I mean, obviously every chart, every setup is different, but sometimes even giving these very, very thorough breakdowns just to give you a real live example of how I'm looking at treating this. And I know I say this all the time, you guys, when you enter a position, you should have your entries, your targets, and your invalidations all laid out before you even enter a trade. Otherwise, you really don't have a viable setup, in my opinion. And this is one of those examples of I laid it all out right in advance, laying it out and having it play out perfectly, basically. So yeah, like I said, if you're interested in seeing more examples of stuff like that, do yourselves a favor and get in my Telegram by scanning the QR code on the screen. And like I said, my partners at BloFin are currently giving this special promo. You can see the QR code on that poster as well. But BloFin is giving my followers this promo until December 7th. So you have about, a couple days left on that. And signing up, taking advantage of that also gets you access to my free Telegram channel. So with that, I think that's all I needed to say today. So thank you so much for watching once again, my friends. With that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.